Right now, though, when you drive past a new development, maybe it's a new building, or probably more to the point these days, particularly with things expanding, maybe it's a whole new suburb or a whole new section of a suburb going in. It can be confronting and can be disappointing to see just how many trees are knocked down to make way for some of these big developments. Well, the Toowoomba Regional Council was looking into bringing in some rules about that, but have delayed. Environmental groups say they're disappointed that the council has delayed the introduction of these temporary planting laws over the removal of trees and vegetation. Councillors yesterday voted to put on hold proposed changes that would require projects to undergo further assessment if they included the clearing of any vegetation of land considered to be environmentally significant. A lot of people not happy with this development on the text. A lot of comment coming in. Someone has said, so disappointing regarding council. Can you please find out if councillors who voted against have quiet vested interests in up-and-coming developments which require tree clearing? It's worth looking into, I would say. I very much doubt it, because I think transparency is pretty clear these days. But you've raised a fair point. Helen says council vegetation laws being put off, shameful, gives more fuel to developers having way too much power. Your thoughts on that? Scot McPhie joins me now. He is a local ornithologist, a person who studies birds, and has a very active interest in all environmental decisions by Toowoomba Regional Council. He joins me now. Scot McPhie, good morning. Welcome.
Good morning, David. How are you?
Scott, I'm well. So tell me your take on Council's decision. Council would say that they're delaying it for what they would say are solid reasons, and I'll delve into those in a moment. But what's your reaction to the decision to delay?
Look, the whole thing is very frustrating and it was a complete misfire. I wasn't there yesterday, but I have watched the proceedings, and really the council themselves have been misfooted by their own staff and the planning department. The Local Government Act quite clearly says that the council sets a strategic direction and then the operational arm or the staff actually implement it. And so a month or so ago, the councillors decided they wanted a TLPI to bring in tree protections, and so then the operational staff were charged with formulating that, and they haven't done it. And so what was presented yesterday was a very ineffective, very lame proposal that did not go into nearly as much detail as it needed to in order to give us effective tree protection. So the majority of councils still want us to have these tree protections, but the version that was presented yesterday, frankly, was pathetic and should never have even been presented to the council. And so, sadly, it got voted down. I mean, if the operational arm had done their work properly, then we would have had a sophisticated TLPI that would have been fit for purpose, and that would have gone through to the next stage. But, maybe it's reflective of the breakdown and some of the internal issues in the council and the staffing there, but what should have happened definitely did not happen yesterday.
Well, no doubt council would and are saying that more comprehensive version is coming. They're saying that there was a risk in the whole thing being what they term as rushed, whether that's through a hasty timeline, that they need to establish, without any doubt or any confusion what counts as excessive vegetation loss, and a number of points that could come back to become a real issue if they're not clarified and made very, very clear now. Do they have a point on this?
No, they don't, because we at DDEC presented them with a detailed proposal based on what the other councils have around us, and I just want to make it clear to everyone listening, what we're suggesting is basically bringing us into line with the regulatory framework of the other surrounding councils. So, we've got plenty of case examples around us, and we base our proposal on that, as well as our own research. So if the planning department had consulted widely enough, then they certainly, they were given all the material that they needed, but they didn't actually do their homework. So, it only appears rushed because they didn't actually do what they should have done.
All right. So you're saying that really they, as complex as they're saying it is, they had time to actually dot the I's and cross the T's, but they didn't.
No. And look, I mean, you can stand on the shoulders of the other councils that have already done this. These kinds of protections are in place all across southeast Queensland. They've been running for years. There's enough case histories to know the strengths and weaknesses. We don't have to invent this from scratch. We can work on what's already out there. And we gave a summary of what was out there along with our own recommendations. They haven't consulted with us or, from what I've heard, people in the development industry or anyone else. So it definitely could have been done, but it wasn't. And so it's extremely frustrating that the council have asked for this and it hasn't been presented to them in the format that would have made it workable.
So from your observation, you're saying, Scot McPhie, that the problem is less about the actual elected councillors and more about the ball has been dropped behind the scenes by the paid experts, the council staff on this. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, absolutely, because they were, there was a vote 6-4, I can't remember the date, it was over a month ago, where the council said that they wanted a TLPI, and from that point on, the staff were charged with formulating it. And look, to be honest, to go into a bit of detail, they're going about it the wrong way anyway, and if they had consulted or looked at what we gave them, then, they would have found it's actually a lot easier than they think. The thing that Nicola Stepanov was worried about was they're basing it on mapping and overlays and the huge amount of time it takes to develop that and check that, quite apart from the fact that the maps are out of date anyway. But it should not be based on maps because wildlife don't conform to maps. They will move where there's a food source or a habitat source. What we need, and this is what the other councils have, is we need a set of rules and definitions where things are protected based either on the species or the size of the individual tree or a mixture of the both, so the mixture of the two things. So you need a set of definitions that can be applied anywhere in the TRC area, not one that relies on mapping. And so that radically changes how this would be implemented. And this is how other councils do it. And, if they'd actually bothered to consult with people, then they would have seen that they were barking up the wrong tree anyway in doing a very labour-intensive approach through mapping. And that's just not effective in terms of how much effort it's going to take them, but also in terms of the kind of protections that it's going to give, because it's not specific enough and it's not flexible enough, and it's not fit for purpose that way.
So, Scot McPhie, the delay at the moment it seems to be, well, we're probably right to expect that it might be around about 6 months or so, and I guess, give or take a margin of extension of that. Are you confident that despite the delay, that we will get an outcome that everyone will be happy with at the end of that time?
Yeah, we will. And it's just, you've got to kind of, stick through the hard stuff to get to the good result in the end. We will definitely get there. It's about dragging us into the 21st century. And I've got to say there's a hell of a lot of fear-mongering going on about this. Not every tree will be protected, and nor should every tree be protected. Builders and real estate agents and house buyers exist quite successfully under this kind of regime in all the other councils around southeast Queensland. It is not going to make houses less affordable here. It is not going to destroy businesses. It will not mean that you can't prune a tree in your backyard or anything like that. All of that kind of fear-mongering, people have to forget that. All we're doing is just getting sensible regulations in place that will maintain our quality of life, keep our development sustainable. And not only that, it's also good for the development industry because it's going to make it more competitive here. Honestly, it's almost like a sheltered workshop in the TRC area right now, because it's very hard, because of all the land banking around here, it's very hard for bigger and more cost-effective firms to get a foothold in here. But if our developers have to work under the same regulations that all the rest in southeast Queensland have to, then it's just going to make a plainer, simpler, more competitive environment. And it's better for everyone. The businesses will be more stronger and more competitive. and it will be better for the house buyers in the end as well. So there's so many angles on this, but the half-hearted proposal that was put forward yesterday should never have been formulated like that. And so I just ask whoever's putting that together, and it's Nicola Stepanov's in her department, consult with people who've been trying to get in touch with you, and you'll find that your work will be 10 times easier because the material that you need is already out there. They've just got to start to embrace it.
Is in the long run, though, do you see that the end result will make it? Not just about developers, but will it actually impact what people can do on their own property? Once their house is built and once they're effectively living on the land, will it influence what they can and can't do as well?
Yeah, look, it can do, but not to any, onerous degree. When I lived in Brisbane, we had a tree in the backyard that had a protection order on it, and it just meant that, if we wanted to do any significant pruning on it, this was a very large jacaranda tree, which was protected on cultural grounds. If we wanted to do any large pruning to it, we could, but we had to notify the council. We weren't allowed to cut the whole tree down, but we had to manage it in a way that allowed it to keep its character and to keep surviving. So there definitely will be some things like that. And, you look around Toowoomba, this is another thing that the TLPI needs. It needs the ability for individual trees to be nominated by people and to be protected, not just on ecological grounds, but on cultural grounds as well. And so in Lindsay Street, there's a beautiful, massive red cedar tree that needs to be protected. In the grounds of Toowoomba Grammar School, there's pine trees seeded from the lone pine in Gallipoli. They need to be protected. There's heaps of scar trees, which are, probably protected under the state Indigenous legislation, but we need the ability to earmark individual trees and to protect them. It doesn't mean that you can't manage them on your property. It just means that you can't clear fell it. And, there's a lot of people trying to put forward the myth that the only way to make houses here is by bulldozing everything 100%, and that's just rubbish. And the proof that you don't have to do that is all around us in all the surrounding councils. So it will happen, but it's just going to take some time.
Right. Scot McPhie, appreciate your input. Thank you very much.
Yeah, appreciate that, David. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Scot McPhie there. And I should mention, too, the matter will need to be endorsed at the ordinary meeting of Council next week before it can come into effect. So it's been put forward and the decision come to by at a committee level, but has to be ratified and endorsed at an ordinary meeting next week. So we'll keep you posted on that. It is 5 to 9.